As part of this reevaluating my asset allocation, I went to a pretty well-known site online and basically posted all the details of my information anonymously, of course. But it was a pretty thorough airing of everything that I have. And I did this because I wanted some feedback on a couple of things. And actually got feedback on a lot more things than I was anticipating. But I did this just trying to get down some of the mechanics of, okay, if I wanted to change this allocation or I wanted to do this or that, what should I do here?
Right.
And I was, in a way, and this isn't to discount all the discussions you and I have had, but in a way I was looking to outsource some of the decision making and kind of get some contrarian opinions. And the site I went to was a pretty conservative site. So I expected that the information that I was posting and the general theme of fire, it's not always looked on kindly.
No.
And that's actually perfect. That's actually what I wanted, because I feel like I have a pretty extreme view of that situation. And this forum obviously has a different view. And a lot of the feedback that I got was, hey, what you're posting here with this hard and fast date of 2024, that's a pretty inflexible position. And in general, inflexible positions tend to yield very difficult situations to manage. And so it's, I'll say the date feels fixed to me, but part of this reevaluation process has made me think differently about that. Maybe treat it a little differently, or maybe there's some in between. Like maybe I can really dial the risk way back on the portfolio and keep that hard and fast date.
Yeah, I really like that you posted there, because it's very easy to get kind of stuck in this groupthink. And as much as you and I like a variety of subreddits that we've discussed on this show, there's some groupthink. And even just today, I was looking at, what's the latest guidance and thoughts on, bonds and their role in a retirement portfolio for someone in the fire community.
You were looking on Reddit?
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
right.
geez.
And so you find the opposite perspective, right? There's a small minority of people who are like, yeah, bond tents are a good idea, and here's how you do it. Other people are like, nope, bonds are worthless. Staying 100%. It's going to correct. Don't really worry about it. Just blinders are on. And somewhere in between the extremes of those different communities, plus your own sort of personality and your specific assets is where like perfection will lie. So I like that you're gathering information from multiple camps, and I'm really curious to hear what kind of feedback you got.
Well, I mean, it's so true. Like the confirmation bias, like if you want to find confirmation of your plan, you can find it, in the extreme on the internet, whether that's Bogleheads or it's Reddit. As we build into toward FI, right? We're working toward FI. We're on the path. We have a plan. The plan for most of your FI journey is pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
High savings rate. You want to invest in some low cost index funds. I mean, that's the kind of template, right? And just stick to your plan. I'm basically 3 years out, a little bit less than 3 years out. And so that really is a pretty big transition point where you start needing a different plan. So what I did was I created this post. I basically said, here's what I'm bringing in. Here's what I'm saving every year. These are my accounts. These are the funds I have access to. My asset allocation currently, like when I made the post, was 100% equities. And I said, I know that's not a smart strategy because I'm basically 3 years out from FI. So I want to adjust it to a more reasonable asset allocation of 85-15. Which, I mean, we can
15 bonds, 85 stock.
Equities. That's right. Yeah. And then I just was asking for some information on the mechanics of actually rebalancing, so I was looking for kind of some subtle details on it. And then also like based on the funds that I have access to, bond funds in particular, fixed income assets, because they're in, pre-tax accounts and things like that. What do you think? Because it's not like I have, I can just go and choose whatever I want in all of my retirement accounts. It has to be based on what the employer is providing for my wife and these various other things that we have. And then I had some other questions about Roth conversions and things like that. So like those are tangential to this conversation, because really the feedback that I started getting was, well, based on I mean, the number one piece of feedback was like, whoa, way too risky.
So it's not just me, is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
right. Exactly. Basically, you're insane for having an asset allocation that high. It's way too risky. And the thing that I failed to realize here was the risk that I was taking was not worth the reward that I was seeking to get. All I was programmed to think about was, I want as high an equity, allocation as possible so that I can maximize returns. Maximize returns.
Sounds good.
Right? And someone pointed out to me that obviously the amount of money that I was saving between now and then, my annual contributions, was going to get me to my FI number with or without any returns in the stock market. And it's so silly that I couldn't see that. But the person who pointed this out basically said, most people don't realize that the majority of your wealth building capacity is driven by your savings rate. And I think that the percentage they used was somewhere upwards of 70% of that. Your success is determined by that savings rate. And of course, it's like, if I look at those numbers, I'm like, well, geez, I don't have to do it. Yeah. I mean, all I need to do is maintain that savings rate based on that income level. And I've got it. So I should be 100% bonds, like 100% safe. And in fact, some people suggested some pretty ridiculous things about how they thought I should allocate, and pretty low percentages of stocks, which doesn't really work for a FIRE portfolio, I think.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And did you disclose your age as well? Because to me, that's obvious, right? You don't want to outlive your money.
That's
so you're
right.
going to need that engine from the stock to keep things going.
Totally. Yeah. So, and I mean, I guess people can fill in the blanks as to how long that portfolio needs to last, but it's at least 40 years. And like you're planning on a 50-year retirement. I don't think
worst case, I won't die.
Yeah. But, and then I talked about my proposed withdrawal rate being 3.5% based on, the portfolio. And, of course I got feedback on that, way too low. I got a bunch of feedback that said you should keep working based on what you're earning every year. You need 10 years of expenses plus 3 years of cash. That was one of the comments that I got back. And, I don't expect to take all the advice, obviously, but it made me really rethink the decision to go 100% equities. And one of the comments that came back just basically referred me to Vanguard's sort of historical performance of different portfolio allocations. Have you seen this?
Yeah, I have.
And it's really telling. So 100% equity portfolio returns something like 10.3% versus an 80-20 portfolio, which returns 9.8%. And a 70-30 portfolio returns 9.4%. And if you look at total return on those different portfolios versus the risk that you're taking, I mean, it's much easier to live with a portfolio that's like 70-30 than it is to live with one that's 100% equities.